Hi everybody, welcome to another week of App Developer Conversations. Again, here with Ryan Morell of PlacePlay, Roby Ganguly of AppTentive. I'm Ian Sepperman of Mobile Dev HQ.
I'm going to step out for 1 second. Keep going.
Okay, we're going to keep going without Ryan. So we're going to talk about the news today. There was a few interesting announcements this week, I think. Quickly, what are they? And then we'll go into each one. So the first was the Firefox OS developer preview phone was announced. The second was Verizon stating that they sold 6.2 or so million iPhones in the quarter. And the third was the announcement of BlackBerry 10. So let's walk through these one at a time. First, starting with the Firefox OS, because I actually think that's my favorite announcement. Even though I'll reserve judgment for later. So Firefox announced that they have a new OS which bets on essentially HTML5 for apps. It's a more open platform to develop for, and that now they have a handset maker lined up. They've made developer preview phones and they'll start shipping at some point. Initial reactions?
Yeah, I think it's dead on arrival. Personally, I don't know that there's. I think that we all understand that the web is very powerful and that's great. I don't think that Chromebooks took off. I think there's probably a reason for that, and I think that these kind of feel like Chromebooks to me.
Yep.
Yeah, same thing.
Yep.
I couldn't be more sick of hearing about HTML5. At some point, people just have to recognize that apps are successful for a reason. It's because you can provide a seamless, fantastic native experience.
That's right, and I think we see the exact same thing. Really, if you look at it, the exact same thing with the Palm Pre, which essentially you were writing JavaScript and HTML.
Yep.
And that obviously did very well for Palm. The other one was the Ubuntu phone a couple weeks ago, which came with an incredibly snazzy video done by Mark Shuttleworth. Did you guys have a chance to look at that at all? I mean, the video was super snazzy, and like the phone looks nice, but again, I'm just like we've already defined the two-horse race here between Android and iOS, and native apps are the best, and like how are these guys 10x better than what's currently available? And I just don't see.
Yeah, and I think that really is the question. Like at this point in time, you have to come out with something that is so amazingly different and better, or you have to have so much money that it doesn't matter.
Right.
It doesn't seem like Firefox is that, but
right.
Yeah. Well, especially because some of this stuff sounds probably really interesting to kind of the geeky technorati crowd, but for most of the people, it's like
that's right.
This isn't going to work, right? And when you're talking about trying to get mass market adoption of any handset, you need consumer awareness and you need channel support. Mm-hmm. And we've already seen how important channel support is, and Microsoft kind of bungled their launch of Windows Phone 7 by not having good channel support. It's like, what's the point?
Yep. Yep. All right, so Firefox, good luck, but we're not super optimistic at your chances.
Well, and so I think we should add one thing here, that like if you're an app developer and you're really excited about it, it's maybe worth looking at, but don't expect any money.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's going to be a revenue generator at all, and I also don't really know what their App Store experience is going to be like yet, which to me has the potential to be some sort of game changer. But if they're betting on HTML5, like my likely answer is like, well, are they just going to use Google as their App Store? In which case, I don't think that helps them in any way.
Yeah.
no.
So if you're an app developer, like, be cautious there, I think is the answer. Okay, so the second announcement was Verizon saying that they sold 6-point-something million iPhones in their last quarter. Is that super good, or like yet again they sell a lot of iPhones?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, as far as I understand, it's good because I think a year ago they sold 4-something million.
So 50% or so.
50% increase, and I think for the quarter last year, Apple sold 47 million iPhones. So, or maybe that's not right, but regardless, if we assume that increase holds across the board, then you're looking at a lot of new devices in the winter quarter. So, I mean, I think it's you know, from if I'm Apple, I mean, they kind of need some good news. Just kind of everyone's kind of dumping on them right now, and in traditional Apple methods, they just don't say anything.
Right. Well, they have earnings. By the time this video comes out, the earnings will have been out, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So
So we'll know.
Yeah.
But I think it just continues to show that, you know, this, you know, back to the Firefox thing, this is a two-horse race.
Yeah.
And even if iPhone's growth is slowing, it's iPhone and Android.
Yeah. I think 6 million through one carrier in 1 quarter, that's a lot, right? Just looking back 2 years, we were like, holy crap, that's amazing. Now we're like, oh, you know, Apple's just killing it. They're doing a great job. But I think some of the other stuff that came out around the announcement was there's some significant data about people switching. Right? I think I saw a number like 19% or so of iPhone customers in the quarter were actually previously Android customers. I know that that's survey data, so it's not exactly right, but Verizon's talking about seeing some of that switching stuff in their data too, so that's interesting, right?
Yeah. So who do you think this is better for? A massive growth in handsets to Verizon. Is it better for Verizon or is it better for Apple?
You can go first.
I would say I think it's both. I think that the story that right now, at least in the United States, Verizon, LTE plus Apple iPhone 5 has is pretty impressive, right? Like I have friends who are using that for tethering, and they've actually turned off broadband and they just use that to tether at home, which I think is kind of silly, but the fact that you can do it is pretty amazing. And so the story that those guys are able to tell together about the services that they're providing is pretty impressive.
Yep.
Yeah, and I mean, for carriers, it's all about locking in consumers to long-term contracts, right? And for Apple, it's all about getting as much money up front for your device, and it's hard to know how their contracts will work. So, you know, if people want smartphones, despite the fact that Verizon and everybody has to kind of take a cash hit up front, it's good for the long term, especially as they're looking to offer these kind of ongoing services. And if, you know, LTE is pretty impressive, right? So we're not that far from people going, I don't need cable anymore because I'll just use LTE, and I've already got it set up through Verizon, and now I'm never going anywhere.
Right. Yeah, especially as you get rid of desktops in favor of tablets as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. And any quick takeaways for the app developer from this announcement?
I mean, U.S. growth, iPhone growth is still strong, right? And it's clearly still the biggest channel. I mean, I think we talked a little bit about this before. I still don't understand where all and who all are buying Android phones. And they're clearly selling a lot of them. I know you have one, but they sold 9-something million smartphones, and 2/3 were iPhones. Okay, so what were the rest, and who were those people, and at what price points? That's information that developers really need to understand, right?
And nobody has good data on that.
No.
I would say the other thing that's an interesting takeaway as you're designing your apps is, for a long time, people have looked at the penetration of broadband as a really important metric. In fact, we still report on it today, and we say that some of the things that are happening today are because broadband's so universally accessible. Well, now the penetration of LTE means that a large portion of consumers can take an app that's big, right, from a download perspective, that is heavy from a data streaming perspective, and actually deliver a great experience for more and more people on a regular basis.
Yep. It's true. Yeah. Lastly, BlackBerry 10. So BlackBerry announced their new OS. It included a whole bunch of enterprise security crap. I don't know what, like, that stuff is all voodoo to me, other than they charge a CIO a lot of money to say that their network is secure. I guess the big upshot of the announcement was that the OS looks like it's sort of a modern refresh of what's going on at BlackBerry. Does BlackBerry stand a chance?
Well, I think that there's a lot of headwind, especially in the app development space, right? So most of our audience is not thinking about developing BlackBerry apps. But the enterprise stuff, the thing that strikes me as really interesting and smart is BlackBerry continues to be a favorite inside of large, typical enterprises because of the access control, like the ability to turn off data to certain devices, to maintain security, be able to remotely wipe devices. That stuff still, to large enterprises, to governments, is really important.
That's why Obama has a BlackBerry, right?
Right, that's right. And so the fact that with Enterprise or BlackBerry 10 and their Enterprise Edition, you now have the ability not just to manage your BlackBerry devices, but Android and iOS, means that some of the, I guess, decline in enterprise business for BlackBerry perhaps is going to slow. I don't know if it's going to change it and turn it into growth because, oh, this is now the way to manage it. But that story is important to a CIO. When you're managing 75,000 professionals globally and your job is to not lose data, BlackBerry looks like the best option.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to, from an app developer perspective, if you're developing enterprise apps, maybe BlackBerry makes a lot of sense. But I find it hard to believe that it's ever going to be a mass market device again. And even now, I think you're going to be hard pressed because some organizations still really like BlackBerry and they still have the enterprise server stuff installed. It's going to be hard to switch all those people who've already moved away from Android, moved to Android and iOS back. So I mean, maybe the server side stuff becomes their core business.
Yeah.
That's really possible.
The other thing that they announced was that they were continuing their, I forget what they call it, that basically their app developer program where if you can essentially get $1,000 in revenue from your app on a BlackBerry device, they will instantly up that to $10,000. Is that meaningful for a developer to think about as part of why they should choose a platform?
If it's less than $2,000 to develop your app for BlackBerry, maybe, and you're relatively confident you can get to that 1,000. I don't know what that means.
Right.
I don't know. What do you think?
I think that the math, right? $10,000 is not really meaningful enough, especially if you're developing for the enterprise. You're probably thinking about dollar amounts that are much larger, but they're making the offer for a reason. Maybe they have some insights in the market that we don't, but it strikes me as being too little, too late, and because it's got this hedge of, well, you have to make over $1,000 to be qualified for this. It just seems like it's a non-issue. It's not going to impact anybody.
Yeah.
Yeah, I tend to agree. All right, so the wrap up is, if you're an app developer, be cautious on Firefox OS. iPhone in the US is a big deal, if you didn't know that already. And probably be cautious on BlackBerry as well. Cool. Thanks, guys. Be sure to like this video, comment if you want to talk about the news.
Just hustle, just stick with it, and maybe you can't expect Temple Run success for yourself, but you can't expect that if you stop trying, you're not going to be Temple Run, right? So like keep going at it, keep continuing to figure out what your audience really loves about it,